Lion L. Johnson, the Lion, the First, Primaris Angelus Mortis. All names to refer to the Primarch of the First Legion, the Dark Angels. I think there is barely anyone that has invested any time into 40k that does not know who the Lion is. But where did he come from? And what did he do? And what is he going to do? If those are questions that you have, then you're in luck, since that is what we are going to talk about today. Hi there, I'm Cotton and welcome back to Cotton Hammer. This is the first part in my Primarch series, so I just want to make a few things clear before we start. This is not going to be a biography that includes every single little detail on Lion L. Johnson. This is more an abridged overview of his life, what he does and did, what he's like, why he hangs out with roped midgets, that kind of stuff. So, without further faffing about, let's take a look at Lion Johnson. Let's take a look at Lion L. Johnson. Lion's story starts where every Primarch story starts. In his gestation pod, briefly under the Imperial Palace on Terra, before getting yeeted across the galaxy by warp spaghetti nonsense. Thanks, Urda. His yeeting would eventually cause his pod to crash land into the forests of Caliban, a feudal death world. Caliban was covered in massive forests and feudal cities, with barely technologically literate knights running the place. Lion landed into one of those forests. At first you might think that this is a sweet deal, just some forests. That's nothing compared with some of the stuff the other Primarchs had to deal with. Yeah, well, no. Caliban and its forests were infested with literal monsters. Large beasts that had been mutated by the touch of chaos. Doesn't help that you're hanging out basically right next to the Eye of Terror.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
After surviving in the forest for some months, maybe years, he was finally discovered by a hunting party from a knightly order called the Order. Yeah, all brain cells were on max when coming up with that name. Anyway, they took Lion in. He was but a wee boy looking like a 10-year-old at that point. But remember, Primarchs grow up much faster than some regular schmuck.
Like you.
So it's hard to tell how old he actually was at that point. Lion himself refuses to talk about his time alone, frolicking in the woods, so he isn't any help either. When he was first discovered, the knights that found him wanted to just, well, get it over with. By their logic, he survived among dangerous beasts that could disembowel knights in power armor. If he not only survived, but even managed to slay a few of them, surely he must be worse. Why take the risk? Didn't help that Lion L. Johnson couldn't speak yet, and was instead staring them down like a chihuahua stares at any living being that's larger than they. So yeah, this would have been where the story of Lion L. Johnson ended. But instead, a noble knight named Luther was like, if it looks like a human, smells like a human, and hates anything that looks different than him, like a human, then it's probably a human. I mean, he was that wrong, since Lion was a Primarch and technically not a human. But gold star for trying, I guess. Anyway, Luther, who was a big deal in the Order, saved Lion's life. And this was the start of a story of lifelong friendship, brotherhood and trust. One which would never be broken and betrayed by one of them being extremely salty over not being the best there ever was. No sir. Oh no. Anyway, Luther was also the guy that gave Lion his name, Lion L. Johnson. The name means, in Calibanese, Lion, son of the forest. Again, that wrong Luther, he's the son of the Emperor. But let's keep trying. After learning how to read, write and use a toilet, cause the groundskeeper was getting real sick of him, Lion quickly rose the ranks among the order. It's also here that he started to develop a few things that he would become famous for. A very strict sense of justice and order, with no excuses given nor accepted. An outright desire to protect those under him, and sweet skills to swing a sword around. Whoosh whoosh! While he learned all that, and the traditions of Caliban, he kinda noticed that Caliban, well, kinda sucked mad ass. The aforementioned beasts weren't happy just staying in the forests, but actually started to attack human settlements, while the Order, and other knightly orders who actually put effort into their name, built fortresses along the forest borders. This just wasn't enough, and only helped to postpone the human extinction on Caliban. Lion already had a plan, but kept it to himself since he did not question nor belittle his elders. A fetish for order and all that. But after he climbed to the highest ranks among the order, he was finally in a position to reveal and push for his brilliant master plan. Let's just kill the beasts before they kill us. Jokes aside, it really wasn't as simple as that. The numbers of knights were low, and while the technological level of Caliban did include power armor and bolt weapons, these couldn't be replaced or sometimes even manned due to the dwindling population. Lion's idea was to just go all in, gather up every knight and just storm the forest with an overwhelming local force. A big risk since it could leave the remaining population unprotected. But it ultimately proved successful, and Caliban was slowly united over the course of a decade. Now, I want to claim and use this part to talk about his personality, or sometimes lack thereof, since how he handled this whole situation is mirrored in how he handled the Great Crusade and the Horus heresy, and is an open window to look at how he ticks. He never spoke up about how he would have handled the situation, not because he didn't believe in himself, but because the laws and rules he got taught told him that he has to be in a certain position first, even though he could have saved many lives if he had done so sooner. But that wouldn't have been by protocol, that wouldn't have been order and law, so he did not do it. Once he got into that position of power, he almost immediately enacted his plans, to great success. During that purging, he also shows that he has a very black and white view of the world. Not to the extent of Conrad Curse, of course, but you're either with him or against him, which he showed when he wiped out every knightly order that did not ally with him. It's also worthy of note that Lion actually tried to avoid fighting altogether, not out of cowardice, but simply because he doesn't like being among other people. He just wants to be left alone and ponder in solitude. But again, his sense of order overruled this, so he led the campaign from the front lines as was expected of him by tradition. After the purge of Caliban was done, and Lion was appointed Grand Master of the Order, and with that effectively the ruler of Caliban, he immediately set out to make some drastic changes. Every single tradition that did not make sense from an efficiency standpoint was thrown out of the window. Only nobles can be knights? No, that doesn't make sense to limit your recruiting pool. So yeet! Fancy titles and ranks? No, only leaders and those that follow matter. So yeet! And yes, that included him. When he was declared Grand Master, for example, he took on the title without any ceremony. Basically just a firm handshake, and that was already enough time wasted from the Lion's point of view. Now, this really pissed some people off, especially Luther. Like, look at it from Luther's point of view. You are training and dreaming since the moment your brain can form thoughts of becoming the Grand Master of the Order. It is the highest honor any man on Caliban could ever achieve. You wage war your whole life, lose friends and family to both monster and knight, but you become a living legend. Everything is set up that one day you will be that Grand Master. Something that you and many others have worked and bled for every waking moment of your life. Then you find some ripped toddler in the woods, decide to be a decent person and not unalive the child, and within the next few years all your accomplishments aren't even worth mentioning anymore. Cause Lion is literally a demigod that you have no chance of competing against. And if that is not bad enough, the guy then gets handed the title of Grand Master, the highest honor on the planet that you were yearning for, and he treats it like it's absolutely worthless and even an annoyance to have to show up to the ceremony, which he didn't. And Lion, while his closest friend and mentor was literally about to get an aneurysm from sheer butthurt mad anger, noticed absolutely nothing, cause Lion can't read people, like at all. Emotions? What are those? You could literally be crying and bawling and Lion would still waddle up to you and ask if you are possibly somewhat sad. And if you then reply something sarcastic like, "Oh no, Lion, I'm just watering the plants with my eyes," he would then spend the next 2 hours giving you a lecture on how a watering can is much more effective. So, if it isn't obvious by now, whether it is by design or because of the time spent in isolation fighting demonic furies will remain a mystery, but Lion is on the spectrum, got a case of autisms, has Asperger's.
And now clearly I have Asperger's!
Very funny.
Well, I'm glad you think Asperger's is funny. Just note my condition on your records there.
Get out of my office.
Whatever you want to name it. Lion is a walking calculator and simulation machine. He is tactical efficiency made manifest. He might not be able to read Excel spreadsheets like Bobby G, but give him one glimpse of a battle map and he runs every possible calculation in his head and picks the one with the highest chance of success. You know the saying, weaponized autism? The Emperor actually made it into a thing, and it's the Lion. Hence why he can come up with hyper-optimized and statistically perfect tactics in seconds. But distinguishing between someone grinding their teeth in anger and a simple smile is an enigma to him. It's also why he puts such high value on protocols and order. Everything has to go like it says in the book, or he is literally going to chimp out. And of course, he hates being among people. Sure, he'll do it cause he has to, and it is what protocol demands, and he doesn't have crippling social anxiety, he is a Primarch after all, but that doesn't mean he likes it. Anyway, let's continue with the Great Crusade era. The future of Caliban was just a coin flip away whether it would follow Lion's new ways or erupt into a violent civil war. After all, the Lion had just thrown 10,000 years of traditions and history into the trash can and took a fat dump on it. But that coin flip would never happen since the Emperor arrived to claim his lost son. As soon as Lion saw the Emperor, he took the knee and swore his allegiance. It was simply the logical thing to do. And with the Emperor outranking him, Lion didn't even try to bargain or get a deal out of it. It was just, "Hi Emperor, here is my planet and its people. What are my new orders?" I bet Big E really appreciated that for a change, since Lion was the 11th Primarch found and previously had to deal with the trials nonsense that Leman Russ and Vulcan put him through. The Emperor also brought with him about 500 Dark Angels to greet their Primarch. They all kneeled before the Lion when they assembled at his fortress monastery, and the Lion's first instinct was to duel the captain of the company. Because, again, the Lion can't figure out what you are like by just talking with you. But a sword fight duel? You can't hide anything from him in one of those. The Lion of course bested the company captain.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Which honestly is quite an achievement, Primarch or not. since it was just some steel sword against a cataphractii Terminator with a crackling power sword. The Emperor also brought industry and imperial bureaucracy to Caliban, the planet rising up from a feudal death world to the top of imperial technology, which meant fuck your forests, fuck your mountains, and fuck your ancient cities. Have proving grounds, mass industry and hive cities instead. Wasn't all bad though. For once there was enough food, cloth and housing for every single person on Caliban, without the fear of having your feet nibbled off in your sleep by the dreaded forest furries.
Fire!
The people of Caliban didn't appreciate it though, which they mildly hinted at by attempting to assassinate both the Lion and the Emperor to preserve their planet like it was. Spoiler, it didn't work. Before leaving Caliban, the Dark Angels, and by extension the Lion, put the Knights and Aspirants of the Order through the Astartes trials. Only the very best could hope to qualify, which caused quite a few of the Lion's former best friends to feel betrayed and abandoned when they didn't pass the trials. Like, they were good enough to risk their life fighting the monsters of the Caliban forests, but now the Lion lets these newcomers decide whether or not they are good enough to join him into the stars? And if they weren't, he would just leave them behind to squalor in the dirt? Luther was especially salty at this. While he, as Lion's mentor, would still get some enhancements and was allowed to join him in the Great Crusade, the fact that he was now surrounded by men, some of which were squires he saw grow up, who were now just flat out multitude stronger and better than him, kinda rubbed him in the wrong way, and made him even more bitter. The Lion, of course, was completely unaware of this. Again, he can't read people, and much less catch a hint. He saw no problem, only the logic and efficiency in the whole process. When Lion started meeting his brothers, the welcomes were about as warm as a penguin's balls. His brothers were kinda put off by his, well, autism. Pretty much all of them describe him as moody, somber and overly stern. Some also adding that he was incredibly arrogant. This was however not true. The Lion just exuded pure confidence. Cause walking calculator that calculates every possible event the moment he steps into a room. The Lion himself had no interest in interacting with his brothers either, instead having harsh criticisms on their behavior. Fulgrim's pursuit of beauty was useless. Why does it matter if a piece of equipment is pretty? It just has to work. Mortarian's petty hatred for anything he didn't understand was also a waste of time. Either get rid of it or live with it. Not even Sanguinius, our beloved angel boy, was safe from his criticism. When Lion called him out on his ridiculous, and I quote, chivalric ideals. Which is kinda ironic since, you know, Lion's a knight.
I am the knight.
And if you're still not convinced that he had the tisms, his brothers describe him as even more unapproachable than Magnus the super nerd. The Lion had no time for brotherly rivalry either. The Emperor had given him the task of exterminating everything that couldn't make a proper Aquila hand sign, and that was the only thing he would focus on. Lion had autism, so he gets to choose the hyperfixation. It also helped his case that whenever someone would actually challenge him, and he couldn't, you know, get out of it, he would usually kick their ass. Fulgrim challenged him to a sword fight, and he could barely keep up. Guilliman challenged him to strategic simulations, and could at best achieve stalemates. His brothers quickly learned that he dodged their challenges not because he couldn't stand up to them, but because he simply wanted them to bugger off so he could be alone again. When he was given control of the First Legion, which he would rename into the Dark Angels after a Calibanite myth, he found a legion that was just a shell of his former self. They were way too prideful for his liking, a useless emotion, and way too reckless. Which is a really bad combination when you add in that they were already fighting since the final stages of the Unification Wars. The Lion first reorganized the Legion, combining everything he learned from Caliban with the existing structure of the First Legion. Basically, min-maxing his army list. Peak efficiency. He also took the time to duel each and every champion. To, you know, really get to know each other.
No. Wait. Wait.
Of course, it wouldn't be the Lion if he wouldn't take this chance to also piss off this new group of people somehow. He achieved this by first merging the existing Legion with the Calibanite recruits, and giving those Calibanite recruits ranks he thought appropriate without any need to climb the ranks. If you were a veteran of countless battles, climbing the ranks to become a captain or even higher rank, well, you're shit out of luck, cause your aim with the bolter was slightly off, so you're now demoted back to the infantry. While some schmuck from Caliban that tried on his power armor for the very first time yesterday now gets your rank. Yeah, that wuzzled some jimmies. Like sure, on paper he was picking the right man for the right job, but that was of little solace to the guys shafted by this. If that wasn't bad enough, he also went to Gramarye, which was the Legion's homeworld before the Lion and Caliban were found. Gramarye had one of the most splendid and extravagant fortress monasteries in the entire Imperium. But Lion went,
but the engraving gives you no tactical advantage whatsoever,
and just tore the whole thing down. Replacing it with a bare bones fortress that had just barely the required necessities to promote it from a field bunker to a monastery. And he immediately built a bigger one, though still bare bones as shit, on Caliban. So yeah, Lion is the champion of speedrunning, how to get everyone to hate me any %. Now, I'm just going to skim over some key events in the Great Crusade era, because it's mostly just battles and campaigns that belong in the Legion video and don't really add anything to learn about Lion as a character. We already know he's a brilliant tactician and strategist. No need to stroke Lion's JONSON even more.
Yeah, but why'd you say it like that?
So don't worry, I did not forget about the many achievements of the Dark Angels during the Crusade. They simply don't add anything to this video, but will be mentioned in their own video. So yeah, many battles, much glory, Lion's the best, that's all you need to know basically.
You're goddamn right.
One of the things I definitely want to mention though is the little incident when the Dark Angels were dealing with the Sarosi. The Sarosi were officially integrated into the Imperium already, but parts of the plant were still not cooperating. So some Dark Angels, led by Lion himself, decided to check out what the fuzz was about. Now, turns out the Sarosi had already planned to defy the Imperium by assassinating the Lion. Using a nuke they had smuggled on board, hidden as fuselage of a spaceship, under the guise of a diplomatic mission. They would have preferred to nuke the Emperor, but hey, they'll take what they can blow up. Luther noticed the nuke, but decided to just let this one play out, since this could take care of all his woes and problems. He had a change of heart however, and warned the rest of the Dark Angels just in time to save the Lion. Though the explosion still cost many lives due to still being in close proximity to the ship. The Lion somehow found out about it, and banned Luther and many of the Caliban-born Astartes back to Caliban, with the idea that this would somehow work as a timeout corner or something. What it really did is give all those banished from the Legion a lot of fuel for their hatred of the Lion and the idea that he was betraying them. For the record, the Lion was not betraying anyone. He just can't comprehend how anyone feels about these orders. So he just does what's most efficient on paper. Another event that happened during the Great Crusade that just shows what kind of guy Lion L. JONSON really is, was when a rebel leader on the planet Dulan insulted not just the Emperor, but also Leman Russ personally. Leman swore that he would cut that rebel leader's head off personally for that insult. The Lion, who was leading the overall campaign, we refused Russ's request to go down there and just start flinging chairs.
Nice shot.
Course, that wasn't part of the plan. The Lion had already made the perfect plan to assault the capital and HQ of the rebels on Dulan. When this plan was executed, it worked flawlessly, and Russ could only watch from the streets below how Lion slew the rebel leader. Russ stormed into the HQ and basically gave Lion a piece of his mind, followed by a hole of his fist. Not willing to let a beating go unanswered, the Lion and Russ basically spent the next 1.5 days beating the shit out of each other. At one point, Russ realized that what they were doing was absolutely retarded and started laughing. Looking at his brother, Russ hoped he would also see the humor in it and join him in laughter.
I don't think it's funny.
Yeah, expecting the Lion to see anything not written out on a battle map is expecting a bit much. So the Lion, with all his tism activated, interpreted this as Russ laughing at him. So he sucker punched the wolf unconscious and stormed off in a hissy fit. When Russ woke back up, and not laughing anymore, he swore that he'd get revenge on the Lion for taking a fat dump on his honor, not just once, but twice. Whenever the two chapters meet today, they still carry out honor duels to settle this millennia-old grievance. Apart from that, it's also worth mentioning that the Emperor entrusted the Lion with a large arsenal of Dark Age of Technology weapons. Some of these weapons are forbidden by the Imperium for being too dangerous. Like, imagine something being too dangerous in that situation. Which is why they were given to the First Legion and especially the Lion. The Lion is a lot of things, but one of the most standout things is his unquestionable loyalty, even if this trait didn't really pass over to his sons. Due to the absolute trust the Emperor had in him, plus his stoic way of handling things and only using these weapons when there was absolutely no other options, saw him not only with weapons of a forgotten age, but also most of the newest and most expensive weapons were first given to the Dark Angels. You can still see the remnants of this 10,000 years later, with the Dark Angel chapter having ridiculous amounts of plasma weapons and Terminator suits. Nearing the end of the Great Crusade, there was the appointment of War Master. While we know that Horus got that title, many people actually believe that it should have been the Lion, due to the Lion's brilliance both on a tactical and strategic level, and because of how efficient he was. The Lion himself, however, did not share this view, admitting that he can't read people, much less their emotions, and that he's far too stoic and secluded to really become a leader of that scale, since he would need to deal with not just battle, but also bureaucracy and, much worse, other people that weren't his Dark Angels. Lion did not agree that Horus should have been War Master though, thinking much higher of someone like Guilliman in that position. In the end, the Lion did not really care. War Master was just another title, just like his Grand Master title many years ago. When the news reached him that Horus was appointed War Master, he didn't even congratulate him, just left him on red. Just before the Horus heresy started in full, the Dark Angels were sent off by Horus to the most far off corner of the galaxy he could find for them. So great was Horus's fear of the Lion that, despite his arrogance, he couldn't see him beating the Lion, neither in personal combat nor on the battlefield, so he just sent him as far away as possible. I once again want to mention just how famous Lion's loyalty was, that Horus didn't even attempt to sway him to his side. Something he did try with Ferrus Manus, one of the Dauntless Few, through Fulgrim. Small tangent here. The Dauntless Few were 4 Primarchs, selected by Bobby G that he considered the most dependable and trustworthy. Those were Ferrus Manus, Sanguinius, Leman Russ and Vogel Dawn. Now you might think, Wait a minute, Cotton. If Lion is the most loyal loyalist to have ever loyaled, then why didn't G-Man pick him as one of the Dauntless Few? The answer to that is simple. G-Man picked those four considering how well they could cooperate with him and his Ultramarines. You cannot cooperate with the Lion. You either follow Lion's plan, or you are wrong. G-Man, who was tactically more flexible and liked to incorporate the strengths of other legions to add on to his in joint campaigns, simply couldn't work with the Lion, who calculated a perfect strategy at the start of a campaign, stuck to it, and won. So yeah, I thought that was interesting enough to mention. Anyway, to get back to the Horus heresy. While undoubtedly loyal, the Lion's inability to read other people would end up not just biting him in the ass, but the entire Imperium. After Horus's betrayal became known to the entire Imperium, the attack on Isstvan V was being prepared. The Lion couldn't send his entire legion because they were bogged down in a campaign against the Gordian League. But he could send a small strike force to the Forge World of Diamat to secure Ordinatus' weaponry and snatch them up before Horus's forces could, which he would then use against the War Master's position on Isstvan V. However, he had to get back to the Gordian League campaign and rally his entire legion. So Peter Turbo convinced the Lion that he should give all those incredibly powerful Ordinatus weapons that he had just snatched from under Horus's nose to him. And the Lion just went, okie dokie. Well, one drop site massacre later, due to the Dark Angels being so far out of position, they could barely interfere with Horus's rush to Terra. However, you know that saying about willpower moving mountains? Now imagine having the willpower of not just a human, but a Primarch. And not just any Primarch, but the Lion, the First. The Lion descended upon the traitors' planets like a firestorm. First to feel his wrath were the Night Lords. During the Framas campaign, the Night Lords were being hunted down by the Dark Angels. They did try to stop the Lion by using warp spaghetti bullshit and demons, but the Lion countered this by just ignoring the Council of Nicaea and reinstating librarians to give those damn demons a taste of their own warp nonsense. Of course, this doesn't sound very loyal, but the Lion calculated that this was the best way to fight the demons, and the Emperor had told him to use whatever is necessary to protect the Imperium. So really, the Emperor had given his okay all along.
Not to worry, I have a permit.
This just says I can do what I want.
After dealing with Night Lords and Death Guard, none other than Kairos Fateweaver appeared to persuade the Lion to join Chaos. He looked into the Lion's heart to see what he most desired, and he saw that the Lion's brightest burning desire right now was to kick his feathery ass.
I'm in danger! I love glue!
The Lion then impaled Kairos through his demon heart and then mockingly asked him if he saw that coming. No, Lion. Kairos can only see the future and the past. So no, he could not see that coming. You insensitive prick.
Don't care, still don't care. I don't care.
During this campaign, using some warp engine MacGuffin named the Tuchulcha engine, he managed to ambush the Night Lords multiple times. This resulted in the second fight between the Lion and Curse. The first fight was during that Framas campaign where Curse invited the Lion for a parley on neutral ground, trying to convince the Lion of his own delusions. The civil conversation between two demigods ended up with the Lion having his throat slashed open by Curse, and while Curse was occupied strangling the Lion, one of his Dark Angel Honor Guard ran his blade through Curse's back, saving his life. I don't know how the guy that calculates every possible outcome to a situation couldn't see the outcome where Curse goes batshit and tries to murder him. But yeah. Anyway, that second fight ended up with the Night Lords dragging their comatose Primarch away while fleeing for their lives. Major improvement from the last time, I'd say. The next time they would meet, Curse had woken up from his power nap and boarded the Lion's flagship, the Invincible Reason. And while every Night Lord that tried that same shit was taken prisoner, Curse evaded the Lion on board his own ship for multiple months, with the Lion frantically searching every inch of his ship so the goddamn squeaking from the vents would stop.
He's in the wall.
He's in the goddamn wall!
After regrouping on McCrack and the wider Ultramar system, with Fabulous Angel Boy and his Blood Angels, and Bobby G and his Blueberries, they decided to form Imperium Secundus, cause they kinda thought that the Emperor and Terra were probably both burning piles of rubble by now.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
While there, the Lion amused himself with wrecking word bearers and world eaters around, and hunting for that goddamn squeaking sound that he now keeps hearing on McCrack. If he wasn't doing that, he was fighting with Guilliman and how Imperium Secundus should be run. I told you there was a reason Bobby G didn't like the guy. An example of this was with the rebels on McCrack. Guilliman wanted to keep damage to his planet to a minimum and opted for smaller operations to take the rebels out one by one. The Lion just wanted to orbital mobility cities on McCrack that were known to host rebels. Let's just leave the details of what went down during the whole Imperium Secundus deal to its own video. Important to know is just that after capturing Curse, they learned that the Emperor was still alive and the new priority was to get to Terra. You might also find it interesting to know that the Lion actually saved Curse from being executed. It's a bit complicated, but the Lion, after capturing Curse, brought him back to Sanguinius and Guilliman to stand trial, cause that's a protocol on how this should be handled. Curse, however, was a master of talking shit, and exposed how the Lion had started bombing despite Bobby G telling him to not bomb his planet. The Lion then tried to slay Curse right there and then, without trial, cause Curse was spitting facts and the Lion wasn't having any of it. This resulted in the Lion getting kicked out. Like, not just out of the room, but out of the entire Imperium Secundus. Kinda can't rule an empire when one of the leaders just goes around doing his thing behind everyone's back because he is convinced he knows best. Maybe he did. But what the Lion just doesn't get is that cooperation, compromise and especially trust are required to rely on each other. While the Lion left McCrack with his Dark Angels, he actually starts showing remarkable character growth, thinking about and analyzing his own actions, what they caused, what he did and what he regretted doing. While we are still a long way from Lion becoming a man of the people, which would take another 10,000 years at least, he does start considering his actions to maybe not be absolutely flawless. Except for on the battlefield, that is. There he is peak and nobody is gonna tell him otherwise. He returned to McCrack and stops the execution of Curse after he was found guilty by the trial, big shock I know, telling Sanguinius and Guilliman that Curse could be useful due to his prophetic visions. It's through these visions that they learned the Emperor is still alive in the first place. The Lion also agrees to be Curse's jailer, taking him with him on his flagship, but this time keeping him out of the walls. After getting through the ruined storm, they found that their route to Terra was blocked by a considerable traitor fleet. The Ultramarines and the Dark Angels agreed to distract and lead away the traitor fleet so Sanguinius could slip through and head for Terra. Guilliman and his Ultramarines would soon follow, but for some unknown reason, the Astronomicon went completely dark for the Lion and his Dark Angels fleet. He interpreted this as proof that Terra must have fallen. But rather than give up or join the War Master, he decided to go on a rage-filled crusade to destroy as many traitor homeworlds as possible. He called this crusade the Crusade of Vengeance. Like, don't expect poetry from this guy. This included Chemos of the Emperor's Children and Barbarous of the Death Guard. After meeting up with Leman Russ and Corvus Corax, he found out that Terra was in fact not destroyed, just kinda dented, and headed there to help out. But as we all know, way too late to influence the battle and its outcome. Kinda bummed out by his space dad being on life support,
I hate it here.
He went back to Caliban where his not space dad tried to shoot him in the face with orbital defense cannons. So yeah, Kind of a shit week for our boy Lion. He learned from fleeing merchants that Caliban was shooting at them because Luthor had done a really good speech and rallied Caliban in defiance of the Imperium. The Lion assumed that this was because of more chaos corruption, and didn't realize that Luthor was simply butthurt and corrupted by chaos. So he just bombed the shit out of his whole planet. Can't be chaos corrupted when you're reduced to dust and rubble. The Rock, their fortress monastery, was protected by heavy shields however, so the Lion still had to get down there personally to slap some sense into his not space dad. However, it hardly went as planned, methinks, since during their confrontation, Luthor blasted him with a psychic attack formed from his new chaos powers. Didn't see that one coming, eh? Which pretty much took the Lion out. Chaos then had another laugh when they lifted their control over Luthor, letting him see what he had done to his dear forest baby.
What have I done?
And then they called in a warp storm to rip the planet apart. This vacuumed all the traitor marines into the warp, where they would become known as the Fallen.
I've fallen.
And those that didn't were gunned down by the loyalist Dark Angels. Wu, upon reaching the site of Lion and Luthor's duel, just found a Luthor mumbling about how Tiny Man appeared and kidnapped the Lion, but that he would come back and forgive him. The remaining Dark Angels put this to the test by refusing to kill him and instead torturing him for 10,000 years straight. Hard skip for the next 10,000 years, cause the Lion is snap-pilled and snore-maxing.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
Meanwhile, his estranged children are making it really bloody hard to tell that they are the remaining loyalists. Their hunt for the Fallen has pretty much caused more damage to the Imperium than the Fallen ever did or wanted to do. But that's a rant for another video. Back to the point. After the powerest of all power naps, the Lion wakes back up and finds himself in some weird forest that reminds him a lot of Caliban. Now, everything that I am going to talk about here, and far more, you can find in the very recent book, Lion, Son of the Forest. Wes Hammer has done a full video on it if you just want a TLDR on the book, and that video is also over an hour long. So I'm going to just point out what's important to Lion as a character. Anyway, trying to find out where the hell he was, he finds a watcher in the dark. After getting nowhere, asking it questions like, "Where the hell am I?" he asks the watcher what he should be doing instead. The watcher replies with, "Just do what's in your nature." And off the Lion goes, tracking the smell of corruption to beat the shit out of it. This is how the Lion figures out that he now has some psychic powers. Most likely awakened due to the cicatrix on top of his latent Primarch powers. This manifests for him as the Forest Walk, which he can use to teleport pretty much wherever he wants when he envisions it. So pretty much like Goku's instant transmission. During his forest walks he also bumps into some of the Fallen. Now, during his time in Imperium Secundus, the following purging and his 10,000 year power nap, he had time to do a lot of thinking. And he finally starts to understand that not everything is black or white. So he actually sits down and listens to those that betrayed him, just to learn that from their point of view, it was him who betrayed them. All a ruse of chaos, of course, but the point is that if the Lion wouldn't have immediately just orbital bombarded everything and everyone, this might have been figured out before he got warp spaghetti blasted in the face, and the planet Caliban cracked open like an egg. But yeah, mistakes were made and the Lion is here to fix them, reforming all the Fallen he collects around him as the Risen. Like, I know what you're thinking, but it's the Lion we're talking about. We can consider ourselves lucky that he didn't name them the Not Fallen instead. On the way he also collects a few peasants with pitchforks as his personal retinue because why not? They're actually adorable, but of little help when the Lion moves on to challenging the 10,000 Eyes warband, which is also led by a Fallen who wants to use the Lion's body to infiltrate the Imperial Palace and assassinate the Emperor. Interesting about this is that they do it cause they think this will free the Emperor from his mortal prison and allow him to reincarnate and lead the Imperium once again. Despite sound logic, the lion replies with even more logic in the form of "nuh-uh" and defeats the warband's leader and mastermind, Seraphax. One hilarious moment here, which shows how the lion really can't comprehend change at all, is when he's fighting and he feels how he is sluggish, slow, and in general doesn't feel on top of his game. He questions his opponent which form of chaos warp nonsense this is, to which he gets told that there is no warp spaghetti going on and that he just got old. Anyway, after beating Seraphax, he returns to not Caliban in that weird forest, opens his loot boxes and gets the Emperor's shield. Now, on his way to figure out what the hell is going on in the Imperium, like as a whole, he bumps into Dante of the Blood Angels. After getting a quick update, he does what needs to be done and uses his forest walk to waddle straight onto the Wormwood, Vashtor's planetoid fortress spaceship thingy.
He has such a way with words.
Here he had to save Dante again, who took his first chance to die by jumping straight in front of Angron, the demon Primarch. Now, if you thought that the stories of just how overpowered the lion is in one-to-one combat were bogus, here he stands, as an old fart, against the immortal and demonically empowered embodiment of stubbing your toe in the dark. And he wins. He just wins. Like, Angron is the same guy where it took 109 Grey Knights to banish his ass back during the First War of Armageddon. And the lion just pimp slaps him back to the warp. You can look at this either like, wow, the lion is badass, or alternatively, wow, Angry One sucks so much ass. Both are equally valid. So, shield looted, fallen collected and Angron slapped. What's next for the lion? It's probably no surprise to hear that someone like the lion, a man who puts loyalty and duty on top of his rigid system of order, isn't particularly impressed by the current state of the Imperium. Even less so than Bobby G. But where Bobby G at least tries to find diplomatic solutions, the lion will show up to an Imperial planet, completely ignore the governor and his posse, and go straight to the civilian populace to ask where their problems stem from. Because the lion may not be able to read people, but you only need logic to know that any politician lies more than he breathes. After forming his conclusion, he will give the local government his plan on what needs to be done and changed to get the planet back in top shape. And as we learned before, you do what the lion tells you to do, or you don't do anything anymore. Seriously, the return of the Primarchs is probably the worst thing that happened to Imperial nobility in the last 10,000 years. So yeah, that's where we are at this point in the lion's ongoing story. He rejoined the Imperium, met up with his sons, is collecting his other sons across the galaxy,
We got one!
and is telling nobles to suck a fat one. It would have been interesting to see if he would have forgiven Luther at this point, but Luther managed to escape during Vashtor's attack on the Walk, so we'll have to wait a while to see that develop. Some say he's gathering other fallen around him to make his own army, but for what purpose, we don't know yet. Throughout his story we could see what Lion L. Johnson is like as a person. He is loyal, stern, stoic, but also incredibly unresponsive to change. He doesn't like being around people and he doesn't like to be questioned. He much rather take care of things alone. And he has the same range of emotions as an angry brick. Like I said earlier, he is literally weaponized autism. Though he is slowly learning to question himself and his actions, and to consider how his actions can impact others. He also learned that there are other colors than black or white. And he is using his extreme analytic skills to figure out why people do the things they do. Still autistic as fuck, but hey, progress. Apart from that, him growing up among knights gave him unparalleled sword skills. And I don't think many would disagree that he is the best swordsman in the galaxy. Plus, him being a walking calculator helps him find the best plans for any situations he comes across, ensuring that the lion can kick any ass on any battlefield, either personally or using his Dark Angels. So, that was it on the Primarch of the First Legion, Lion L. Johnson. An interesting character who suffers from very human problems to make him one of the best among demigods. Kinda ironic if you think about it. I really encourage you to maybe read a few books about him if you want to know more, especially his Primarch book and Son of the Forest, since I obviously can't cover every single detail. Just enough that you can quote things from this video and sound like you know what you're talking about. Anyway, I hope you liked the video and that this helped you to understand how the lion ticks. If you did like the video, then please leave a like. And consider subscribing, cause I am eventually going to cover all the Primarchs. Also, who do you think would be a better leader for the Imperium as a whole? Bobby G or Lion? I also have a Twitter you should visit to get a daily Warhammer fun fact. Anyway, thanks for watching and see y'all next time. Cheers!